And we're going to talk about some strategies of how to overcome that. And you're right, CJ, in an hour, I don't know how much we can accomplish, but you can get this PowerPoint and use it as you need to. And it has lots of resources where you can do further study. So without that, let me go to the next slide. I love this quote with Malala: when the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. And especially for what is going on now, we're hearing so many voices, justifiably so, with what is going on. So, this topic of voice and speaking confidently and speaking up is very relevant right now and very powerful. So, I hope that we will learn um, to speak your mind, even if your voice shakes. That's the Maggie Kuhn quote that I love as well. She was in charge of the Gray Panthers. This was many, many years ago, but I love her quote, and it's still so relevant today. So here's our agenda. We're just going to, Anna and CJ shared some, expectations. We're
Sorry,
going to,
sorry,
yes,
Janis. Do you want me
yes,
to introduce the rest of people who have been
yes,
commenting?
please, because
Okay.
I cannot see the chat,
Okay.
Marion.
You
So
should
I don't
just,
know.
yeah, there's a button at the bottom of your screen. You can just click that says chat at the bottom of your WebEx platform. But
Okay, see,
it's,
I am
some,
actually on PowerPoint,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what.
Yeah, sometimes when you're clicking back and forth, you may have to click into it and then out of it. So don't worry about it. Oh, that's
Okay,
okay. You can go back to your PowerPoint. I'll just read the chat. Um,
okay.
so we have, let's see here, who else? We have Jennifer Morales from NYC Civic Corps, looking forward to learning something new. Yenny from City Corps member at Moya would like to get some tips on how to overcome anxiety and nervousness before speaking in front of large groups. We
Mm-hmm.
have Caitlin, she, her, serving in City Service Corps with the NYC Parks Department. Also, she's hosting a webinar this week, so looking forward to gaining tips on how to speak effectively over a virtual platform. Then we have Sharon, she, her, um, with City Service Corps, hoping to learn tips for speaking in front of groups. Ryan, he, him, AmeriCorps service member at Urban Dove, hoping to find ways to be more confident in giving presentations and talking publicly. We have Lauren, she, her. She works for the NYC Department of Education with City Service Corps. I've always been terrified of public speaking and joined in search of strategies she can use to overcome this fear. Then
Mm-hmm.
we have Chanel, she, her. And again, sorry if I'm saying some of your names wrong. I apologize in advance. She said she's a current Civic Corps member, hoping to gain new tips on how to have confidence speaking without getting nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel free to continue adding these in. I'll let
Yes,
Janis know
please.
as we're going along, and we'll interject as needed. But yeah, those are part of the introductions, I know. So you can continue going over the agenda.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. And wonderful, uh, expectations and hopes for our session. Yes. So just to just reiterate, we're just going to talk a little bit about, how you speak with confidence and courage, how to calm nerves, and some tips to appear confident. And I say appear confident because we all experience nervousness. It's a very normal, and you really need to just embrace it instead of trying to push it away. And then there are some good resources for you to continue your study. So I'm going to have you. I want to hear some voices now. So I'm going to ask for a few volunteers to unmute and to respond to the question of what are the qualities of a great speaker, and what might have made her or his presentation memorable. Just those two. So a few comments, please, and let me hear some voices. Maybe just two or three at this point.
I'm not using too many verbal fillers.
Absolutely, yes. Good point. Good point. Thank you. What is your name?
I'm Asana, and I'm an AmeriCorps Vista.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. Yes, not too many fillers. Other qualities of a great speaker.
Jenny, trying to look at each of the
I couldn't hear what Jenny was saying. It was too low.
I said, can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So I said that trying to look at people in the room like each person in the room when you are speaking. No, no.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, thank you. And other comments. A great speaker. What made something that you heard, or whether it's a speech or even just a conversation, what made it memorable? What are those qualities? Okay.
Hi,
Yes, please. Your name.
Ryan. I'm AmeriCorps at Urban Dove. One thing that made it memorable was when the speaker felt invested in what they were saying, and they were emotionally invested in what they were saying.
Oh, absolutely, Ryan. That's so true. Speaking about what you're passionate about, what your purpose is, that's where you sort of can begin to overcome nervousness because you're so, as you say, invested in what you're saying. It's so important. Thank you, Ryan. Other comments? Qualities of a great speaker. Yes.
When I be able to open discussion, because something when you are talking or speaking to a group, the main idea is to inform, and when you have listeners engaging on the discussion, that means it was actually worthy. Because the whole idea about communicating with someone else is to open the discussion, to come with better ideas, and also to absorb the information that was just shared on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that when you're talking, you you can see and feel people listening. So and you're leading that discussion. Thank you. So I'm going to just turn it to the next two questions. What excites you about speaking, and what scares you about public speaking? So you can unmute your phone, maybe two or three folks to share what excites you or what scares you.
Well, I'm back from Jennifer. So
Yes.
some that had to work and scared the heck of me to the point that I'd rather just be behind the scenes and let someone else do the talking is because my accent. Being in a team with a strong accent and having people all my life just nodding the head, yes, we understand what you're saying, but in the all the time when I hear them, like, do you have any idea of what I just say? And that kind of hurts because I try my best, and sometimes doing your best is not enough. And that's why I prefer someone else do the talking to me who understand what I'm trying to say, move forward the discussion because I cannot do so. And that kind of like, let's not do the talking, let's do the hard work and let someone else take the spotlight.
I see. What is your name? Could you tell me your name, please?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, thank you for sharing that. That was, I understand you've experienced some difficulty and people not understanding because of your accent. I appreciate you sharing that. That's, and how it reminds us that we all need to be not just speaking confidently, but listening deeply and actively when someone with an accent is speaking. So thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. Other thoughts about what excites you or scares you about speaking? You can unmute so we hear your voice. Yes.
Hi, this is Chanel Barry.
Hi, Chanel.
Hi. One thing that really makes me really nervous about speaking is that when I get too nervous, like right now, I start to stutter, and sometimes people just start to look at me, and I just start to feel really insecure about what I'm actually trying to say. But my thoughts in my head, like I know exactly what I want to say, but it's just hard to come out properly at times.
I see. And Chanel, thank you for sharing that. And these are just, one way that can help, and we'll talk about that a little bit a little further into the discussion is about taking a deep breath to sort of try and relax your body, and to sort of get in the present moment. Because I think that, stuttering from nervousness, it can happen to all of us. And the challenge here is to use your breathing to slow down your nervous system to the point where you can speak clearly. But thank you for sharing that. So these are very, we've all experienced these things, and I appreciate you sharing that. So let me just move on to the next couple slides, and then I'll open it up again. And please continue to share comments and thoughts in the chat, and I'll invite Marianne to share that with me. So what I want to talk to you about is my colleague and I developed a curriculum called Voicelessons, Speak Confidently. And when we did it because our belief in that we really want to honor all voices. Every voice needs to be respected and honored and heard. So in looking at Voicelessons, what does it look like? What does it feel like to speak with confidence and courage? We have it in 3 domains. So it's what you say, the content, the impact of your words, your choice of words, how, and then how you say it. So the how you say it is about, that's what I just mentioned, about how you take a deep breath before you are going to speak, how you speak from your diaphragm rather than in a slow whisper, in a very soft whisper where no one can truly hear you. You need to speak from your diaphragm. You need to breathe. You need to get centered in your body. You need to not cross your arms so that your body, your hands or your arms are crossed over your ribs. You need to stand tall so that your voice projects. It's almost as in singing lessons. That's what they teach in teaching people how to sing. The tone, the timbre of your voice, all that is important in how you say it to get people to listen. And then the third domain is where you say it. So, and by that we mean for you to be observant of, are there systems and cultural norms that silence or stifle your voice? For example, if you are at work and you are going to a meeting and you are, say, the only woman in the meeting of all male colleagues, there might be, and it might not be intentional, there might be an issue of to notice that, how your voice is heard in that particular configuration. So just to be aware of that, okay? So the idea of Voicelessons is that every voice is heard and honored. Okay, so now here we're going to get into, and here's what I want to hear from more about you. Here's we just talked
Janis,
about.
there's another question here. It says,
please.
CJ to everyone, when people say speak from the diaphragm, he said he doesn't quite understand actually how to do that.
Okay, so an example of that, CJ, would be...
Oh, I'm sorry, they, them, excuse me.
They, them, okay. An example would be, if I am speaking in a very high voice, and so sort of from the neck up, that's how my voice comes out. Whereas if I am speaking and I can feel it in my diaphragm when I'm speaking from that place, it comes out differently. So that's what we mean about speaking from your diaphragm, taking a deep breath and then feeling your voice down low, not just up, from your neck up. So I hope that helps a little bit to explain that. So let me, this is the things we just talked about. What you say, the content, your presence, how do you speak with clarity and influence, how you say it, that's the diaphragm, that's the breathing to amplify the voice, and where you say it, what are the systems and cultural norms that might silence our voice. So here's what we're, a lot of you talked about in your expectations and hopes for today, how to calm your nerves before a presentation. So again, some thoughts, discomfort's part of the process, especially if you're giving a presentation in front of a group of, say, 15 to 20 people. That is, nervousness is a part of that. People that speak and do this for a living, people that are celebrities, still have anxiety before they go out in front of a crowd. So this is something that you embrace rather than and reframe it, that it's normal and it's part of the process. Then the second piece that I mentioned about returning to the body, be present in your body. It helps with stuttering. It helps with a crackling voice. It helps with speaking too high so that you're not really heard. So also when you're giving a presentation or speaking, I have my my thermos right here of water. You must hydrate all the way through and watch your caffeine intake, because if you drink a lot of caffeine before a presentation, you may start to speak so fast and then people will not understand or take it in. They'll start, sort of tuning you out because it's going too fast. And then another thing about a presentation to calm your nerves is to prepare and have 3 things ready you want people to remember and focus on, so that you have your 3 talking points. And that is something that helps with nervousness, because no matter what happens, you have those 3 points ready to speak and to be heard. So before we move on, I'd like to open it up again, and both in the chat and have some of you unmute your phones, 2 or 3 folks, to share what are some things you do that you could share some best practices with us to calm your nerves before speaking.
Janis, this isn't something to calm nerves, but this is more about things that nerves kind of cause. Again, I guess
Okay.
Ryan wanted to share is I'm not sure really what makes me nervous about speaking. I guess I get nervous that I will make a grammatical mistake or not say, I'm not saying say the perfect thing. Also worried that afterwards I'll think, I could have said it better and regret speaking. So I guess that's more of just something that seems like something that could hinder somebody from speaking.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for sharing all the chats with me. Yes, Ryan, good point. So it's, and that's about, what you're talking about is, again, like anxiety about, well, I said a grammatical error, or, it didn't seem I could have done this better. I think that's all very normal and part of the process. But I think where you can push through that is when you speak, to be speaking from your heart, to be speaking about what you're passionate about, to be speaking with an energy or an enthusiasm about something, so that those feelings and that warmth and enthusiasm and energy overcome any of the, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I'm probably doing it today several times, but I am passionate about this. I want you all to be able to speak your mind, so that helps me overcome any nervousness I have, because I want this so much for you, because I believe in it, and because I care for the AmeriCorps members and the service members. And so that helps me push through any of that. So we're not perfect. No one is perfect. You could be, have 3 PhDs and still make grammatical errors. So be a little gentle with yourself, and just focus on being authentic. That is what people relate to: authenticity, energy, enthusiasm. So I hope that helps, Ryan. So any other comments, other best practices? What do you do to help yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, hi. I'm Andrea from AmeriCorps Jumpstart program.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi. So one of the things I do is I like to take small breaths
Mm-hmm.
when I give presentations because it kind of gives me time to think of what I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, Andrea. Excellent. And it slows you down. You take a breath. It just slows your nervous system down so you could be thoughtful. Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Other strategies, other best practices? Anybody want to share before we move on?
There's some in the chat here. So we
Yes,
have
please.
Jennifer said drinking Java chip chai latte or mocha, eating chocolate helps calm her.
Okay.
And then
Wonderful.
there's Rochelle says, I think being as prepared as possible beforehand makes you less nervous, at least for me, especially if it's something I know about. Being aware of mistakes and knowing that no one is judging you helps you feel better as well. Kind of, I think you were almost speaking to that before, Janis. And then Yenny Fernandez says drinking chamomile tea. I think that's a good tip too.
Good tip. Yes, chamomile tea is very calming. These are all very good tips. I actually had a piece of chocolate before I got on here, so I like what that was. I think that was Jennifer said that. Well, thank you. These are great strategies. And yes, hydrating, and making sure if you do have a presentation that try to get sleep the night before, if it's something, that is also helpful. So these great self-care tips. And yes, be gentle with yourself and be authentic because people relate to that. They know if you're trying to perform too much. You want to be authentic rather than theatrical. So, and what I have here is really, you've all heard of Jerry Seinfeld, I'm sure, but this is something that I thought was really, humorous, but also valid in that studies of people's anxiety and fears. The number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. So death is number two, which means, if you're an average person, if you go to a funeral, you would rather be doing the eulogy. You're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. I mean, that is pretty descriptive of real fear, isn't it? So I thought that was funny to put in here, and I always bring that up. So thanks for those. I think it's really helpful, and I think we're going to continue on with some more tips and tools of how to take action when you're planning a meeting. You really do, and somebody said it already, to be prepared. You really need to think it through. And again, the power of three. What are 3 points that you want to contribute to the conversation? And so, even if you get nervous at a meeting or you feel anxious, you will have prepared those 3 points. And I would suggest you even put it on maybe an index card, something that is right there in front of you that will help you keep focused on what you want to convey. And that also helps with any sort of nervousness because you have your 3 points ready and ready to contribute to the meeting. So just looking here at my notes, but all right.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Who is
Hi.
this?
Hi, this is CJ.
Hi, CJ.
Hi. I just wanted to say that the best presentation that I gave was when I didn't prepare for it.
Okay.
Which
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really nervous about it, and I wrote a speech out, and I went over my PowerPoint presentation, and then I just did it without bringing up my speech or anything. So.
Okay, and I think that's also very valid. And in essence, you did write 3 points. In fact, you wrote a whole speech. And so that was the prepared part. But then when you got in front of people, you spoke from your heart, you spoke from, your thoughts, and it just flowed. So you did prepare, but then you didn't, wrote word for word or go back. You just did that preparation and then you were really ready. Did it go well, CJ? How did it go?
Yeah, that was one of my best presentations. It was about my research. In comparison, so some of my other presentations, I had flashcards and like a whole speech written out, and then I would just follow it and then make a mistake, and that would really mess me up. So.
Yes, you'd get flustered if you didn't follow the right order. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, because it was your research, so you were passionate about it. That's something that that was very powerful that you were sharing. You did prepare, but then it just flowed from you, and that's also that happens a lot. You just you spoke from your knowledge and your research, and um, it's like finding a balance. You did prepare, but then if you follow too closely to written key points, then you could lose your place. And then, so it's navigating that balance. So CJ, thank you for sharing that. Very important point. Thank you. Other comments about what you do, what how things have gone for you? I'd love to hear your voices. And this is good practice too, speaking to all of us. Other comments about best practices?
Hello, this is Jennifer
Yes.
again.
Hi, Jennifer.
So, I had a situation back in college. I had this professor called Picas. He was known as one of the worst professors you want to give a speech to. So he was making professor. When you do marketing, they are like sharks. He was a shark. He will destroy you after a speech because he wants to make sure that you get a feedback and you learn from that. So my team and me were like, okay, how are we going to do a presentation or a speech to this professor, knowing how he is?
Mm-hmm.
And we found out, since we know he likes to not drink alcohol, but like he have to have like juice or something.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to make him piña colada. We give it to him, and the speech was amazing because in order to make a speech, not only what you're saying, but also you need to know your audience. Are you talking in a more relaxed audience? Are you talking to a professional audience? Are you talking to someone who gets hungry? And when someone gets hungry and you're talking for an hour, 2 hours, they don't get hungry. And unfortunately, they don't want to listen to you and they want to say things that's going to hurt you. So, in order to deal with that, first learn just setting the time and who you're talking to. And from there, build up the speech because sometimes, depending on the time, you need to wrap up the speech because it can be before lunch or they have a meeting next time or they had to get out and travel to somewhere else. So you also have to be mindful of who you're talking to.
That's absolutely excellent. Absolutely, you do. If you have a hungry, tired crowd in front of you, it will not go well. I mean, it can be, so you have to be, as you say, mindful, an excellent word here, of your audience, and the time of the day. And if you're doing a PowerPoint, is it just like you can glance at it so it doesn't have too much language on it? You could check in with people. How are you feeling? We have a few more minutes left or say we have 10 more minutes. Like for right now, for us, we have about like 20 minutes left. So check in with people. How are we doing? Are you okay? Because that helps people think, okay, I'm all right. I can sit here another 20 minutes because, you've actually checked in and let people know you're aware that this is running up into the lunch hour, of which we are in the lunch hour. So very good point. People need to be comfortable and have their needs met. And so just by checking in and being conscious of the setting and the timing and all that is really important and a best practice. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. Anything else? So I have another best practice and then we'll move on. These are great stories there. Tell us something that, when you did have a fabulous, when you were very successful in speaking, what was that like? Yes.
is that what happens?
Yes, I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So what happens is that sometimes you have
Now you're going in and out.
okay.
Marianne, can you hear her? No, I
Can
can't.
you hear me now?
Can hear you a
I
little
can
better.
now. A little better, yes.
Okay. So I think what happens sometimes is even though you may have everything in front of you laid out, when you are with the audience and you start interacting with the audience, you notice that there is the audience had other interests, and you kind of switch in some way to also engage the audience, and your speech may change because of that, because that has happened to me. Where people are interested in discussing a particular thing that you brought up, and then the discussion may go in that way, and it may become a different discussion.
That is a very good point as well, and a very good practice to think about, because sometimes you have a goal of my talk is going to be on a particular topic, but then the group all of a sudden, and that's sort of addressing the wisdom and and the power of a group process, where someone might say, I really like when you brought that up, can you tell me more about that? So then your talk kind of may veer off into another direction, but you are meeting the needs of your group, your audience. So again, you have to navigate that, because you want to finish some of the key points you were supposed to be conveying. But you also have to navigate that and recognize that your audience wanted to delve a little more. So one way you can handle that is talk a little bit more in the direction the audience wanted to go, and then say, I'd like to check in with people later, or you can reach me at this email address if you want to talk more about this, but I do need to go back to the message that I came here to say, but I'm really eager to continue that at another time. So you're recognizing and respecting the needs of your audience, but still being accountable for what you were charged to do. So that's a great point as well. I really like that. Thank you for bringing that up. Very good examples of how to have a successful conversation. Okay. Let me see. Can we do one more of these best practices or stories about your own experience? Because I think this is wonderful to hear your voices, and what you're sharing is very powerful and very important for all of us to hear. One more, please. Anything in the chat, Marianne, that I'm not seeing?
No, I do not see anything, but sometimes there's a little bit of a delay that takes a second. If anybody wants to share in the chat about that, I'd be happy to read on your behalf.
Hi, this is Ryan. I'll share.
Hi, Ryan.
So I've had a lot of really good presentations. I've had hour-long presentations in class on philosophy, but that was easier because I read the material, I really understood it, and it was easy to sit there and discuss something that I was comfortable with and can discuss. I was also on my law school moot court team, and I liked being peppered with questions, sort of like I read the material, I was prepared, so it was easy to talk through something I was prepared about. But so like I'm nervous more with like impromptu speaking. Like right now I'm really nervous. Or in meetings, I'll get nervous. And I don't really have a mechanism to cope with it. But even in law school, I would be really nervous before moot court. But then once it started, I could just like get through it. But beforehand, I would be really, really nervous. And even just like discussing in more informal settings, but like group work settings, I'll not speak because I'm too nervous to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I like the way you said when you were nervous at first, but then once you got started, you got into it. So your interest and your your knowledge and your passion for the topic, it sort of diminished that nervousness because you got into your, the thinking about it rather than feeling. So that's a good point, and that happens a lot. And more impromptu. Well, Ryan, let me tell you, you sound great. Your voice sounds very clear. It sounds very strong. You don't sound nervous at all right now in our webinar here. You're doing it. You're doing it. And the more you practice, and the more you practice the impromptu speaking, the better and more comfortable it will get. Will you never be nervous? I don't think any of us are ever not nervous about speaking in a group. It's sort of a natural, something that's very natural. And you've all heard of Gloria Steinem, who travels the world speaking about feminism and women's rights. Speaks about how incredibly shy and terrified, absolutely terrified of public speaking. And what got her through it was her passion for what she was doing. And so that's why now she speaks often. She still gets nervous every single time, but the power of her message and her passion for it is what fuels her. So in thinking about public speaking, focus on what you want to convey, how important your voice is to be heard. And that is where that overrides nervousness, because every voice needs to be heard and honored, particularly now, Ryan, with everything that's going on. The power of Voicelessons to speak confidently is more critical now than ever. We need to. So I appreciate you sharing that, but you're doing it. Great job. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me just move on to a couple more slides. Steve Jobs never used PowerPoint. He said you could have death by PowerPoint. It is, but with webinars, we're sort of stuck.
Just want to share one more thing.
In the chat?
One more thing in the chat.
Please, yes.
So Asana said, I'm with Ryan, going back to what Jennifer said. If someone tells me about a challenge that makes me more nervous. So if you say this person is difficult to please or a tough critic, I lose it.
Oh, okay. Like ahead of time. If someone, that anticipation. Mm-hmm. And that is, it does set it up to be difficult, doesn't it? When someone says this is going to be a challenge. So if you know that, if you hear that, and then prepare, as best you can, and prepare, even over prepare, so that you go in thinking, okay, so I know what I want to say, even if he or she starts giving me this negative feedback or gives me looks of like, what are you talking about? So, and then you have to go display confidence even if you don't feel it, because sometimes people that are difficult, and the professor might be difficult or whatever, you need to delve into your own ability to believe in yourself. This is a challenge, but you can do it, and you have to. And that's why I put up 10 tips for appearing confident, because if you appear confident, people are less likely, even if they're known as difficult, to really, try and rattle you. And some of the tips for appearing confident, even if you don't feel it, to just put that out there is, we talked about a stable, clear voice tone, no whispers, make eye contact, listen to others, particularly if you are going in front of somebody that might be difficult with feedback, to listen, to stop and say, do you have any questions? Is there anything else so that lets them know, a person who was categorized as difficult, that, okay, this person is asking me a question. Often when people are difficult, they want to be heard. So, navigating that that's the art and science of public speaking. When you speak, self-confidence is not aggression. It is It's not attacks or anything. It is, speaking from the heart, using your passion to exude a sureness, a sense of sureness. Like, I believe in this, and other people may not believe in it, but this is what I believe. Look for win-win solutions, particularly as Ryan brought up with a difficult, someone who is going to be difficult. So that would be stopping and checking in. How was this going for you? Is there anything else you need to know at this time? That sort of can be off-putting from someone who is used to just giving sort of negative feedback. Use some humor. Express gratitude. Confidence is not arrogance. It is believing in yourself. Apologize when in the wrong, but not for being alive or having legitimate human needs. This is an important piece of public speaking. And often women apologize too often. It's okay to apologize when we do something wrong. For example, in this PowerPoint right now, I should be able to see the chat and I can't. And so that's, something that, I don't know, a glitch or whatever. But it's something that is, thankfully, Marianne is reading the chats. But so it's something that went wrong, but it's not, I'm not apologizing for, something that is not, because sometimes women in particular will say, well, apologize often. So you have to be careful of how often you apologize. Sometimes people will just bump into somebody like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. You hear that. I pick that up a lot, particularly with women. So we have to be careful that we are not apologizing too much, only for when we make a mistake, which is when we need to apologize, but not other times. Acknowledge others, give and receive compliments. This is pretty straightforward common sense. Okay. Comments, suggestions. How are you doing right now? Yes.
Yeah, I
yes.
have another two things in here from Asana.
Please,
she says something that is helpful to practice out loud or in front of a small audience. During my presentation, I look for a familiar face or at least someone who seems engaged. And then I also try to be that reassuring face or person when a stranger is presenting to me, especially if they appear to be struggling.
Absolutely. These are lovely and absolutely wonderful. Yes, look out and see someone that's familiar, that's looking at you, has eye contact, that might be nodding at what you're saying and sort of letting you know with body language that I really appreciate what you're saying. And then for you to do that in return, that is really, especially if someone is struggling, to sort of give them that, nonverbal, but body language contact that, I appreciate what you're doing. And it is hard to stand in front of a group, and I'm with you. So that's a beautiful best practice, Asana. Thank you. That's lovely. These are wonderful. I wish we had like 2 more hours and could just see each other. Well, we are seeing each other, but very little. Okay. But thank you for that. Anything else? We only have about 5 more minutes. So I want to be conscious of the time. So these are some quotes. And again, Marianne, they can get this PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, I'll be sending this along to everybody after the presentation. I have another comment from CJ. The biggest audience I spoke in front of was more than 100 people when I was 13. It was the first time I realized public speaking was scary. I don't remember giving the speech, but I was told I did well.
That's so cool, CJ. Wow, 100 people at 13. You are very experienced. That's awesome. And 100 people is, that's really a huge group to speak to. So good for you. And it's cute that you don't remember it, because I'm sure you, as you say, you got the feedback, you did beautifully. But so awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Over 100 people did you have to use a microphone? I bet you did with 100 people.
Yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, sometimes, I've been training and facilitating for many years, but just recently I've had to use a microphone because I've been training for Civic Corps and City Service Corps, and they're almost 100 people. And a microphone puts, then you can really hear your voice, and it's a little added layer of anxiety a little bit. I think I'd rather do it without it, but often you do have to. So again, you have to remember all those things of breathing and drinking water and slowing down and all that good stuff. CJ, thanks for that. Okay, so some great quotes that I just put in here for you to think about. One of the things, I guess, Brene Brown, and I believe a lot of you have read Daring Greatly. I think it was actually given out to a lot of the Civic Corps and City Service Corps members. But Brene Brown is really, I really like her stuff. I think she's become a very powerful voice in leadership. And when she talks about, and we mentioned this earlier, even to me, the issue of stay small, sweet, quiet, and modest sounds like an outdated problem. But the truth is that women still run into those demands whenever we find and use our voices. And also the apology piece. Women often apologize too often. So when I talked about speaking in whispers, that's what I was talking about too, that often, culturally, often women and girls are conditioned to stay small and sweet and quiet. And we want our voices heard equally, just as along with every other human in the world. So I think a good point there, and I'll leave the other quotes for you to enjoy at your leisure. So let me see what else we have here. Okay, so this is just, I call it a worksheet, and of course but to think about at your next meeting or your next presentation, to some questions for you to ponder. What unique perspective can I bring? What are my 3 key points? What relevant questions can I ask to further this conversation? The ability to ask questions, the power of inquiry, is really remarkable. So I'd like you to think about that too when you're giving a presentation. What might be some questions you might pose to deepen the conversation? So what are 1 or 2 developmental areas that I want to improve regarding my presence and communication skills? So let's see, we only have another minute. Could I get just 1 person to offer what they might want to, what they might want to strengthen in regard to public speaking? Is anyone willing to share? Just 1 person, because we're almost out of time.
Hi, just being eloquent, just like actually having a specific point and getting to it quickly.
Lovely. Being eloquent. And I love the tone of your voice. It was beautiful. And elegance, yeah, it takes time, but eloquence, you get there. And I think if you always tap into your authenticity, your passion of what you're speaking about, that eloquence will come. It's always go back to who you are, your beliefs, your passion, your purpose, your enthusiasm, warmth, authenticity. That eloquence will come. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so 1 more minute. So again, just we talked about best practices. You told some of the stories of your speaking so beautifully and eloquently and powerfully. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I appreciate you sharing of how nervous you get and sharing some of the things that you struggle with. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll just show you the resources and then I will let you go. But these resources are very valuable. You see Brene Brown in there. Another, a resource I would, if there's nothing else if you could just do 1 or 2, I would do Brene Brown, and I would look at the Harvard Business Review It's about $20, well worth that $20. It's called On Point: How to Become a Fearless Speaker. It is selected articles from the Harvard Business Review. The whole magazine is about speaking up and being a fearless speaker. And I think it's just really invaluable. So I thank you so much for listening. I wish we could be in person, and someday we will. Please, my email address is here. So if you have questions, concerns, if you want to continue chatting or have another, I'm happy to be here for you. So you could just reach out to me and say, I was on your session, I have a question. So I thank you so much. I will let you go. Please stay safe, make your voices heard, speak up, speak out. And thank you for being who you are. And thank you for making the world a better place for all of us.
Thank you
I will
so
sign
much.
off.
Thank you so much, Janice. Yes, I'll be following up.
Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be following up with everybody who's attended today with these slides and Janice's email. I know I saw some questions at the very end that I just want to be honor people's time. But yeah, thank you all so much for attending. Please sign up for more workshops. I put the link in the chat. And with that, I will let you all go. Have a great day. Stay safe and be well. Bye, y'all.
Yes, bye. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.